master chef, and the only person capable of scaring Arthur was orchestrating a culinary symphony. Martha didn't just cook, she conquered. Her kitchen was a battlefield of garlic, olive oil, and high-pitched instructions. "Penny, stop looking at your reflection in the toaster and help me with the salad," Martha shouted. "And Lucy, tell Daniel to stop talking to that baby in French. He's 6 months old. He doesn't need to know how to order a croissant. He needs to learn how to keep his mashed peas in his mouth." Daniel, Arthur's high-strung son, was indeed whispering to his son, baby Toby. Daniel and his wife, Claire, a woman who believed that crystals could cure the common cold, were the pioneers of gentle, multilingual, BPA-free parenting. "He needs the phonetics, Mom," Daniel insisted, holding Toby up as if he were a sacred relic. "Early exposure to Romance languages expands the neural pathways. The only thing expanding right now is my blood pressure," Arthur muttered, entering the kitchen with a platter of meat. "Where's the salt? Martha, did you hide the salt again? Is this part of your low-sodium conspiracy?" The dinner table was a minefield. It always was. In Oak Haven, a family dinner was less about nutrition and more about the strategic deployment of secrets and long-held grievances. The conversation took a sharp turn when the topic of the local Heritage Day parade came up. Arthur mentioned a neighbor, Mr. Henderson, whose vintage 1995 station wagon had recently been restored. Suddenly, Daniel's face went pale. He looked at Penny. Penny looked at the floor. "You know," Daniel said, his voice trembling with the weight of a 20-year-old burden. "Speaking of 1995 station wagons, Dad, you remember when the bumper on your old Ford mysteriously fell off while you were at that lodge meeting?" Arthur froze, a piece of ribeye halfway to his mouth. "The great bumper tragedy? Of course I remember. I blamed the neighborhood kids for weeks. I even wrote a letter to the city council about the rise of teenage hooliganism." Daniel took a deep breath. "It wasn't hooligans. It was Penny. She tried to drive the car to a concert while you were gone, panicked when she saw a cat, and backed into the stone bird bath. The silence that followed was so heavy it threatened to collapse the floorboards." Penny gasped, her eyes wide. "Daniel, you traitor, we had a sibling pact. We swore on the sacred DVD of The Lion King." "Poor, I couldn't help it," Daniel squeaked. "The guilt was eating me alive. Also, Dad was about to blame me for the scratch on the lawnmower, and I needed leverage." "You snitch!" Penny screamed. "Fine, if we're playing that game." "Dad, Daniel didn't have extra study sessions in high school. He was sneaking out to the indie cinema to watch subtitled documentaries with that girl who wore too much eyeliner." Arthur's face was turning a shade of purple that matched the beet salad. "Subtitled documentaries? Under my roof? And my bird bath. That bird bath was a gift from your grandmother." Martha slammed her wooden spoon on the table. "Enough, both of you. You're grown adults. One of you is a writer, and the other is a father. Stop acting like you're 12. But the dam had burst. The sibling code of Oak Haven was dead, and the fallout would be legendary. Chapter 2. The Vulture in the Nursery. The following Tuesday, Daniel and Claire were facing a crisis. They had tickets to a premiere of a new ethical jazz ensemble, but their usual sitter had bailed. "We could ask Mom," Claire suggested, while realigning her chakra beads. "No," Daniel said, pacing the living room. "Mom will just feed him processed sugar and tell him stories about how I used to be afraid of the vacuum cleaner." Enter Aidan. Aidan was Daniel's co-worker at the local archives. He was a man who wore cardigans in mid-July and spoke in a tone so soothing it was practically a sedative. He had also been sending Daniel approximately 400 photos of his own niece over the past week. "I love children," Aidan said, his voice like velvet. "They are the purest souls. I have a natural affinity for their developmental milestones." Lucy, who had dropped by to deliver some of Martha's leftover, read. 4 gallons. Moussaka eyed Aidan with deep suspicion. "Aidan," Lucy said, narrowing her eyes. "Why are you always sending Daniel baby photos? You don't even have kids." "I am an uncle, Lucy," Aidan replied with a beatific smile. Unclehood is a vocation. Besides, I know you appreciate the beauty of a well-captured infant. I saw you liking that photo of a baby in a pumpkin on Instagram. That was a pity like, Lucy snapped. Despite Lucy's warnings, Daniel was desperate. He hired Aiden. That night, Lucy couldn't shake a bad feeling. She called Penny, who was currently at a business dinner with a high-profile editor, or so she claimed. She was actually at a bistro with a guy she met on a dating app. Penny, Aidan is at Daniel's house with the baby, Lucy whispered. He's a weirdo. He's a vulture. He uses babies to get closer to people. I saw him on the porch earlier, talking on his phone while the baby was inside. He was laughing. With a woman. So? Penny asked, trying to look sophisticated while eating a snail. Maybe he has a girlfriend. No. He left the baby alone to flirt. Lucy gasped. I'm going over there. Lucy's intervention was a disaster. She snuck through the bushes, peering through the window like a cat burglar. She saw Aidan, sitting on the couch, Toby fast asleep in the bassinet. Aidan was indeed on the phone, looking relaxed. Lucy burst through the front door. Aidan, I knew it. You're a baby-neglecting scoundrel. Aidan jumped, nearly dropping his phone. Lucy? What are you doing? I was just talking to my mother. She's hard of hearing, so I have to speak loudly. Don't lie to me, Lucy shouted. And what's that on the baby's forehead? Is that a bruise? Oh my God, you've broken the baby. It wasn't a bruise. It was a smudge of mashed sweet potato. But the panic had already set in. By the time Daniel and Claire returned home, the house was a scene of chaos. Arthur and Martha had arrived, alerted by Lucy's frantic texts. Arthur was threatening Aiden with a meat mallet, and Martha was checking Toby's pulse every 3 seconds. I am a professional, Aiden cried, clutching his cardigan. I checked the milk temperature with a digital thermometer. I sang him Lullaby #4 from the Soothing Forest collection. You're a weirdo, Aidan, Arthur roared. Get out before I turn you into a burger patty. Aiden fled into the night, leaving behind a very confused Toby and a family that was now officially banned from every babysitting agency in the tri-state area. Chapter 3. Martha's Great Escape. The dust from the Aidan incident had barely settled when Arthur made the fatal mistake that every husband in the history of Oak Haven eventually makes. It happened on a Friday morning. Martha was folding Arthur's socks, sorting them by thickness and grumpiness level, when Arthur sighed over his newspaper. You know, Martha, Arthur said, not looking up. It's a shame Penny is so stressed at work. But then again, work is hard. It's not like being at home all day, just, managing things. You've been lucky. You haven't had to face the real world of employment in 40 years. The room went cold. The sound of Martha's breathing became the loudest thing in the house. The real world, Arthur? Martha asked, her voice dangerously calm. You think I've been on a 40-year vacation? You think these children grew themselves? You think the laundry cleans itself through the power of prayer? I'm just saying, Arthur blustered, realizing he had stepped into a bear trap. It's different when there's a boss, when there are deadlines, when you earn a paycheck. Martha stood up. She didn't scream. She didn't throw a vase. She simply placed the socks on the table and walked to the closet. Where are you going? Arthur asked, genuinely frightened. I am going to the real world, Arthur, Martha said, putting on her best coat. I am going to get a job. And you are going to manage the home. Let's see how lucky you feel by Tuesday. Martha Miller's job hunt was a spectacle. She didn't have a resume, so she made one. With Penny's help, the resume was a work of fiction that would have made Hemingway proud. Martha Miller, professional architect of domestic logistics, chief executive chef 1980, present. Managed a high-volume restaurant, the Miller Kitchen, with a 100% satisfaction rate, except for Arthur. Conflict resolution specialist. Negotiated peace treaties between warring factions. Penny and Daniel, supply chain manager, orchestrated the procurement of essential goods under extreme pressure. Thanksgiving.